All right, everybody, welcome back. It's our Your Story podcast. I got Angela Brannon on with me, and she's got a barn burner of a story for you today. My favorite podcast. I learn a lot about people, and there's nothing like hearing an origin story from someone who's dialed in on only that one thing. There's nothing else there's nowhere else where we can go. And so I'm really excited, Angela, to have you on, and thank you for joining me today. How you feeling?
I'm feeling wonderful. And how about yourself, Mark?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm doing fantastic. Your energy's so infectious and so great. It always brightens me up. So I'm doing amazing. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And so I want to get in here with you on your story. You know, everyone has a story. Everyone's coming from somewhere. There's been multiple different places and times in people's lives where impact has been made, a fork in the road has had to been taken. There are, stories of triumph, stories of valleys. And so everyone's story is different. Your story is unique to just you and no one else can have it. If you can do us a favor, walk us down the path of some of the things and people and places that created the woman we're staring at right now. I'd appreciate that.
Perfect. I'll try to do my best here, Mark. So, again, my name's Angie Brannon. I am originally from Pennsylvania. I grew up in a very small town, maybe less than 40,000 people, um, till I was about 18 years old. Um, and then when I was around 19 or 20, I took a leap of faith and packed my things
Hmm.
and I moved all the way to South Florida on my own,
Wow.
knowing one person. Um, I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know what I was going to do, but um, that's where I lived over the next 20 years. I did odds and ends for work and I had my children there, raised them,
Whoa, whoa,
worked
whoa.
some
Let's
odds
slow
and
down.
ends.
Let's slow
Sure.
down for a second. I got 0 to 19 real fast. You went from the 40,000 town, little square feet where there's a ice cream shop and everyone knows your name, to South
Yeah,
Florida in 30 seconds. Let's
yeah.
back it up because we got 19 years in that small town. I don't know what took place. I don't know who impacted you there. All those things probably made you jump in your car and run to Florida. I have no idea, but
Yeah.
but that would help us understand who Angela Brannon is.
So I grew up out in the country. I was kind of tomboyish. Loved to ride my bikes, loved to play in the dirt, loved to garden, loved to play sports.
Wow.
I was pretty athletic growing up because there was nothing else to do. Back then, there was no, well, there was like Game Boy and Nintendo, right? But back then you just played outside and did stuff like that. But sports were really a big part of my life. I played anything from soccer to baseball, field hockey, basketball, um, you name it. I just did a little. Oh, ran track. I did a little bit of everything, and I think that helped mold me into the competitive nature
I
that I
love it.
have.
Oh,
Not
yes.
that I'm competitive and necessarily with somebody else, but for my own self, to make my own self better. And that's what makes me who I am today as far as maybe my work ethic.
How did you gravitate to sports?
Um, I really wasn't a girly girl. I did try the cheerleading thing, but I wanted to be out there like roughhousing with the
Huh?
boys. My neighbors were boys, so we always kind of did boy stuff. Um, I enjoyed that competitiveness of baseball, of soccer. Um, it didn't matter if one of the boys knocked me over. I got right back up and got the ball and took it from them. A lot of a lot of the parents back then, so it I was one of the first girls to play with the soccer teams and the baseball teams. So I kind of started the I'm lost with the word here. Sorry, Mark.
Take your time.
Uh the trend of women or young girls starting to play these sports with the other boys.
Got it. Did you have any brothers or sisters?
I have one sister. She's younger than me. She lives in York, Pennsylvania.
Got it. How much younger?
4 years.
Got it. Was she a sports person too?
Not really. She was more of the girly girl.
Okay. And so when you started gravitating towards tomboyish stuff and sports, who was influencing that, or who was helping you navigate that?
I think more myself. My mom was an alcoholic,
Mm,
and sorry, Mark.
you're fine.
I didn't really want to go.
It's okay. Was dad there?
No, no. So, like, my own childhood traumas have molded me, to be the independent woman that I am. I'm sorry.
That's fine. That's fantastic. I think in life, obviously, as you know, you're living it. It's these trials and these tribulations, and it's the hard stuff that makes us kind of who we are, right?
Yeah.
Not the easy stuff, you know.
No. Yeah. So, it kind of just not forced me, but it um to grow up kind of fast
Mm-hmm.
and to learn how to take care of myself.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't want to say I had a bad childhood. My grandparents were very influential on me. My grandma was like my mom,
Mm.
a mom to me. Um, but yeah, so I use sports as, a tool to maybe let out frustration
Mm.
or to get out of the house.
Totally.
I'm sorry, like and
You're
all
fine.
my makeup and stuff is
I can't tell, but
very
everything looks amazing. That that filter's crushing it. So we're
Uh,
we're doing great. Um, and so you have a sister that's 4 years younger. Would you? Did she see you as more of a parental figure, or as a big sister who needed, or
um
how did that go?
so my sister is so we have different dads, same mom.
Mm-hmm.
And like that dad that helped raise me, he passed away in 2016, I want to say.
Mm.
And he was kind of the glue that, kept the family together. And then, once he passed away, just it didn't really stick anymore. We don't talk. Sometimes when God always says to honor your mother and your father, which I do, but because of that toxic relationship that I had growing up and throughout adulthood with, my mom, um, I just decided, the last few years that I was kind of going to cut ties because it was no longer healthy. It wasn't a healthy relationship. It's very toxic. My mom's very jealous of me and hurtful. And so I just keep a distance.
Understood. Understood. So you
Sorry.
no, I mean you gravitated to the arenas, the green grass, the baseball diamond, the field, um, to let out frustration. So would it be fair to say that um, as you were learning who Angie is, who Angela Brannon is, that you were learning, that some of your coaches and even maybe even some of your teammates really helped in that regard?
Oh yeah. So I mean, I used to run track and field. I'd run the mile and the 2 mile. And, because of being in a small town, I'd run into those coaches every once in a while and we would reminisce. And I was kind of unforgettable out on whatever I did, field hockey, people remember me because at one time, we were scrimmaging and a field hockey ball came up and hit me in my eye,
Mm.
and I needed to get stitches in one of those eyebrows, but I got right back up and went out in the game, when it was game time, with a big patch on my eye. So I was kind of known as like, what is this patch doing on this, girl's face? You could knock me down, but I would get back up and keep going. So
I love it.
thank you.
It screams, you know, who you are to some degree. We'll get into that. Um, so, what sport kind of took what sport or two became dominant for you? Because you mentioned baseball, basketball, field hockey, track. Like what'd you play in high school?
Field hockey.
Straight up, that was where it was at.
Yeah, and ran track, yeah. The mile, the 2 mile, and then I would throw javelin in between meets because I didn't want to sit there and be bored.
I love it. I mean, there's definitely a fire and a tiger inside you. Um, it's funny because you have such a flowery voice. I'm sure you've heard this, but you could be mistaken for someone who doesn't have that fire. But you couldn't fool me. You know what I'm saying? Like
Oh,
I'm listening quite intently, and I'm not just talking about on this podcast. We've done a podcast before, and I was, you know, I've been listening and kind of watching some of your content. I'm like, yeah, there's a beast. Now I didn't know all this. See, that's why these podcasts are great. Your story, because I didn't know about all this, but pretty cool. And so you're the type of person that is throwing a javelin because you don't want to sit around during the meet to wait to run again. Like that's a different type of fire. And so
yeah.
and so how did that play itself out in your teenage years?
Um, well, I ended up going to districts in my freshman year of high school, running the mile. I started off, I had so much like anxiousness. Where did we? I think it was Shippensburg where we went to have that meet. But anyway, so I was in ninth grade. I got out there. I was like number one for the first lap or two, and then by lap four for the mile, I ended last. I just took off way too fast. I didn't pace myself. I didn't breathe, and I ended up last. And I'll never forget that.
Wow. Why?
Why did I end up last?
Why will you never forget it?
Because I didn't do what I was supposed to do to hang out in like one or two like I always did with all my other meets. I didn't pace myself. I came in with too much energy, thinking that I could keep that going for 4 laps, and I didn't.
Hmm. You learned something.
But I learned a lesson.
Yeah, makes sense. And so you go through this deal, and so what was it about the town, or was it just your familial situation that you said I gotta stretch, I gotta spread my wings and
It was the small town, Mark. I mean, I was born in a small town. I grew up in a small town. I appreciate small town kind of stuff, but I had a bigger mindset, bigger purpose to discover. I wanted to discover more of what was out there, and I'm so glad that I did.
well, when you think big mindset, sometimes you think big city,
Yeah,
especially if
yeah.
you're from a small town. Now you had your pick of the litter. Was it Miami or South Florida?
So it was South Florida.
Okay.
My first stop was
First stop.
Hol-
Did you drive?
yeah,
When you say
yeah, I
first
drove.
stop, you mean where you live, not this drive
Well, yeah,
down.
where I lived. I
Got it.
lived in South Florida the whole time there, but was Hollywood, Florida. And at that time, Hollywood, Florida wasn't really built up like it is today. It was like the Fort Lauderdale wannabe. But I appreciate that because I basically grew myself up in South Florida, and I look back and like, wow, what a big world it is. Like the 95 and all that driving, and the hecticness of how everyone drives and stuff, and the crime that goes on. I mean, there's great things that go on too, but here I am, this young girl. I only knew one person. That just seems crazy to me when I look back. Like, what, but you know what? God always took care of me.
Right.
He looked out for me.
That's strong.
Yeah.
And so,
I had a grandmother that was praying for me,
amen to
you
that.
know. Hmm.
Did you become you're down there with knowing one person. What were you in
Yeah.
pursuit of?
Warmer weather.
Ah! New York was not an
Warmer.
option. Got it.
Yeah, no, no, New York was not an option. Just, from being in a small town, there isn't many options for jobs. It's like very industrial. You work in a factory or you're gonna work in the hospital. There's not very many options for work. And I don't really know what I was seeking, but I just wanted a lifestyle change, and I wanted to do it in warmer weather.
Love it. So, Florida's Florida's been that for a lot of people in life. And so, what was your track though? What did you start doing down there? How did you make your way? How did you make a living?
Well, I worked a couple different jobs. I worked two jobs for, South Florida is South Florida. It's not cheap living
Hmm.
then, and,
Hmm.
and it isn't
Hmm.
now. I worked two jobs for a while. Excuse me, was like a retail store manager for a while, and then I had worked in a call center. Um, I don't even know if I want to name drop with that call center. You remember Miss Cleo? Yeah.
Are you serious? I
That
love it.
I needed a job, Mark.
I'm not mad at you. Did it pay well for you to
For
hoax
then,
for you to hoax
for then
people
it kind
based
of
on a
did.
TV
Well,
ad?
I didn't feel like I was hoaxing
I'm kidding.
people.
I'm
I felt
busting.
like no,
Felt like
no,
you were you were
more
you were
a counselor.
you were
Like
doing
when people, oh, I'm
your.
sorry.
Go ahead. Sorry, I was gonna make a joke that wasn't gonna land. So go ahead.
No, that's okay. So no, I see that. No, I see that end of it, but I felt like when people called in, they just wanted an ear to listen or someone to talk
Miss
to
Cleo.
that had problems. They really weren't looking. I know, Mark,
I
trust
love
me.
it.
I'm not
I'm
proud of that.
I'm
I'm
not mad at
not,
you.
but
I'm not judging. It's funny because the commercial is so I could when you said that it literally took me back to sitting in my living in my in my living room slash den with this commercial that nonstop would come on TV. That's hilarious.
Oh, yeah, Miss Cleo. But I never met the lady. Never met her.
I wonder if she existed.
She
Um,
did.
she,
She really did.
she was an
And
influencer
she lived
before
in,
influencers.
yeah, yeah. But I think she ended up getting sued too.
Makes sense.
Something became of that. But I was out of there before
By
any of
then.
that happened. But yeah.
And so this was the beginning of a sales track for you, or did you navigate through sales or?
Um, so I mean, like when I lived back in the small town, I had waitress and did, that sort of stuff. When you waitress, you kind of upsell like
Hmm.
the cake or at the end kind of thing. Um, Later on in life, I got connected with some really cool people that were back then. They were doing internet marketing, like affiliate marketing
Hmm.
before spam became spam.
Hmm.
And that was pretty cool. But then I had my first son and kind of got out of that, for a bit. I was in the music industry for a while too.
Really?
I DJ'd and I had done some schooling for sound engineering. I got to do an internship with oh gosh, just drew a blank there. Some really nice people, some cool names in the industry. But that really,
So how did you find Family First Life?
so Family First Life kind of found me.
Hmm.
Well, then later in life, when I lived in Florida, I had ended up getting my license as for insurance, and I never really did anything with it. I kind of did it as a favor for a friend, um, kind of thing,
Hmm.
Um, and I didn't really see the value in it because they didn't really, you know, tell me about it. Really, I didn't know. Um, but years later, moved to back to Pennsylvania, and I must be on a list. So a man called me up, and he said he was looking for an insurance agent, and I said, "Well, no, I'm not that, but I used to." I was doing Medicare at the time as a volunteer. I had done Medicare as a full-time job too while I'd been here. And I had worked for my husband's family's porta potty business. And they're slow in the wintertime. And when this man called me up, I said, well, that didn't sound like a bad idea. I knew that I needed to get relicensed.
Got it. And so that's how you found us.
Well, you guys found me.
And when we found you, you were ready.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, I was ready for a change, ready to try something new, and just go for it.
You were ready to go, and did you have the confidence to go for it, or did you just kind of faithed it?
No, no, I just faithed it.
And so then you make it in. You get with us, and you start making it happen. And now at the place you're at, would you consider yourself off the market?
I mean, as far as other,
Well, just you had a lot of jobs from
oh,
high
yes,
s-
I have.
from high school all the way up till Family First Life.
Yeah, this is it. This is it for me.
That's
I
crazy.
think I found what God has been calling me to do.
That's crazy. So you had your license. You didn't do anything with it. You finally, we found you. It kind of got renewed. And then you started producing here. And now you're done. You said, I found it. I found it.
Yeah.
Why
I
is,
found what I enjoy doing. I've always loved helping other people, serving others. And, like I'm on the serve the people live dial every day. And guess what? As you can see the logo, I'm with Selfless.
Mm-hmm.
Like that embodies me.
Wow.
Serving the people and being selfless.
Wow.
Like God couldn't have put me in a better place.
That's amazing.
I always tease Tierra. I'm like, I'm gonna be selfless part 2 one day, right? He's like, no, you're gonna get your own. I'm like, nah, but I kind of like the selfless. I want to be part 2.
Well, listen, he's got nothing but amazing things to say about you. You're changing the game.
Thanks.
You're helping people, and it's gratifying. I mean, you're saying like you're done. You're off the mark. You found what God has intended you to do. You
Yeah.
know, and so when you think about the future, when you think about how long you've been married, by the way,
I think 6 years now.
and so your husband has seen the pre version, the post version, Family First Life pre and post. And it's like, how do you feel? How does he feel? And what do you when you think about your future? When you think about what's been sown into your life and what's happening, how's it look?
Future looks bright.
Ha ha!
Gotta wear shades.
Love it. I love
Oh,
it.
Mark. I don't know if this is one of the better podcasts I did for you.
I'm excited because you told your story. I don't know why you're so
Yeah,
concerned.
well, I don't like to be vulnerable.
Hey, vulnerability is
You
part of
know,
life.
when people find vulnerabilities sometimes, and I don't like to be in the spotlight either. I'm
Hmm.
very humble, very, I mean, I do it for social media to help attract like-minded, hopefully women or men like myself that
Hmm.
want to be a part of this as well.
Hmm.
But, and some of it's also comfort zone. Um,
I'm gonna tell you some story. I uh, I didn't want to ever be vulnerable. I didn't understand how to do it because
yeah,
I'm I'm raised, I'm an African American male. I'm raised that I have to be better than to even sit anywhere near the table, and and so I don't want to show flaws or weakness. And
hmm
so there was a time in my career where I did not know how to do that. It was always about like, you know, this is what I'm doing, this is what I've done, this is what it's about, and so like here's the persona. I don't even think I was faking it. I just think it's what my persona was in order to feel like I can get in the room. And so I ran into a mentor, and I was, basically taught. I was taught how to use humility, and then I was taught how to be vulnerable. That might have, now that I'm thinking about it, that might be one of the best lessons I've ever been taught, because once I learned to get vulnerable, what you think when you said, when people see vulnerability, it's almost, you didn't finish your sentence, but it's almost like they have somewhere they can attack. But the truth of the
yeah,
matter is once you get vulnerable, they have nowhere to attack. Once it's out there, and you have the comfort level of it, it's over, Holmes. There's nothing that anyone can do to penetrate what what you already are. And that's true right now with the lack of vulnerability, and that's true with vulnerability. There's nothing
mm,
that anyone can do to penetrate who you already are. There's no there's you're not there's not a new man, there's not a new script out there for you. The script's been written. God already wrote the script. And so when I learned to be vulnerable and I started practicing vulnerability, it's not like, hey, I'm vulnerable, boom, here's everything. It doesn't work like that. Started practicing levels of vulnerability, and I realized ain't that much I'm holding on to that is so sacred. And by the way, as you said, helping people, most of it is springing people free, right? Like, you're successful in the insurance industry. Anything that you can share that's maybe not what you'd normally share is only going to help somebody else. And I'm just trying to encourage you. What you do with the information certainly is up to you. But I do believe, Angela, that you did an amazing job today on this podcast
Oh,
because
thank you.
you let us in, and that's where you went from like trying definitely not to let us in, and it wasn't my goal for like you to like you know tear up, but dude, like healing this is where healing. I can tell you story after story after story after story, but I appreciate everything about this podcast. We may not edit any of it because I appreciate the honesty. Even when you think you're off camera and you're kind of just talking to me, dude, all of this stuff is beautiful. And to believe it or not, it makes you who you are.
Well, that is true. I am who I am. I can't, change that. But for somebody that may share a similar, kind of background or story like me, just know that their dreams or whatever they inspire to do should not be hindered based on, their past. It's what you're doing right now and what you're doing for your future is what really matters.
It's amazing. And you're doing it. I mean, if I can be even a little more honest, what you're doing, if I were you, I would embrace the things you've run from, because when you start telling those stories, tears are going to continue to come out, but there's going to be a time where those ducks dry. And when they dry, telling those stories, it's really over. Because now you're unfazable. When
Yeah.
every time you tell these stories, there's going to be tears. You haven't dealt with this. It's going to be tears and tears and tears and tears until there are none. Because the story no longer warrants tears. It warrants truth, and it warrants justice, and it warrants the story being told for someone else. You will no longer be telling the story for yourself, which is healthy for you to tell it enough times for yourself that you can deal with it easier. I've been there, man. Believe me, I've been there where I could not tell it, and every time I would just utter a word, it would just be like. But the continuous vulnerability allowed for me to tell it now with so much conviction, and I know I'm only saying it to help somebody. Like there's no other. It doesn't hold me anymore. Does that make sense? I'm only
Yeah.
telling it to help people.
Yeah.
Whatever, chew on that. Chew on that. We got a life to live. But I appreciate you. Thanks for jumping on the Your Story
Sure.
podcast with your boy Mark Mead and Angela Brannon. I love it.
Yeah.
The tiger inside that quiet, still voice. Appreciate you.
Appreciate you, Mr. Mark. Thank you.
God bless you. Keep listening, y'all.
God bless you too.
Take care.